copy, and this is the 20th of February 2019, day 6 of GHV Airfield Savers.
This time it's going to be a female Scot and a male Scot, and they're not Scots from Scotland, it's just their surname Scott, coincidentally, because I don't think they're actually, well, certainly not related, but they may have known each other. First one is Sheila Scott, an aviatrix. She was originally born, oops, and I've not got the sheet in front of me here. Originally born Sheila Hopkins, but in 1943 she changed her name to Sheila Scott because she was an actress, and actresses often change their names if somebody else is using that same name in equity. So,
right, yes.
she became famous because she held, by the time of her death, she held over 100 aviation records, which includes 3 round-the-world flights. Which she did the first one. Three, absolutely 3, yeah, completely round the world once. And she was also the first person to fly across the North Pole in a small light aircraft.
Across the North Pole in a light aircraft. Okay, I'm just letting that sink in.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
She bought her first Piper Comanche in 1966 and called it Myth 2. I don't know where Myth 1 went, but that was Myth 2.
It's a Myth 3.
And she did her first 90 world records in that. Her first solo around the world flight was from London Heathrow in 1966, covering 31,000 miles over 34 days.
Oh, that's a lot of flying.
Huge amount of flying.
In a month.
And in 1969, she did it again in the same aircraft.
Wow.
10 years later, this is after she'd sold the aircraft actually had an accident, and the remains of it can be now seen in the National Museum of Flight, East Fortune in Scotland.
Okay.
1971, she bought a twin-engine Piper Aztec called Mither, or she named it Mither.
Handsome airplane.
And she then did her third round-the-world solo flight in the same year.
Okay.
I have a very personal connection with Sheila Scott via my father. Because when Sheila Scott did her flight training, she did her training at Thruxton Aerodrome in a Thruxton Jackaroo. Now, for those who might not have heard of a Thruxton Jackaroo, but most people have heard of a Tiger Moth, very famous biplane aircraft. And the Thruxton Jackaroo is a conversion of the Tiger Moth, converted to take 4 people rather than its original 2.
That's really attractive, isn't it? Wouldn't you like a 4-person Tiger Moth?
And it has a canopy on it as well, so it keeps all the wind out.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, and there are a few on the register flying even today.
Wow.
And when she did her training on the Thruxton Jackaroo in 1958, my father was there as well, doing his light aircraft training. Because although he soloed in the RAF on a Jet Provost, he wanted to get his PPL, so he had to go and do light aircraft training, and he did that with Sheila at Thruxton,
It's
in
amazing.
the Thruxton Jackaroo. So
Amazing.
small world.
It is a small world. We were discussing yesterday that through Julian, I am probably no more than 3 or 4 people away from anyone I choose to mention. Sometimes through his father, but quite a lot of times just directly through Julian. I can't think of many people that I have mentioned, or that he has mentioned to me, that he doesn't have some sort of personal connection with. So keep watching. All of this will come to light in the fullness of time.
Well, a lot of it is in the aviation world, of course, because the aviation world is such a small world. Anyway, most of the movers and shakers all know each other and move with each other, and so that's how the connections go through there.
Well, you may think it's straightforward, but I think it's miraculous. So we have another Scot for you.
Second Scot of the day is quite well known, but probably not quite as well known these days as Sir David Attenborough, but he worked in the same field, is Sir Peter Scott, the naturalist. And of course he was the only son of Robert Falcon Scott, aka Scott of the Antarctic.
The only son?
Yep.
Wow.
And in his day, as I said, he was as famous as David Attenborough. He was knighted in 1973 for his contribution to conservation of wild animals. He was the founder of the World Wildlife Fund, which is now known as the Worldwide Fund for Nature. He founded the Wildlife and Wetlands Trust as well, which was down in Slimbridge in Gloucester, but now there are wetlands trusts all over the UK, including one.
We have one very close to us.
Very close to here, yes.
The Welney Wetlands.
Welney Wetlands Trust, yes, which probably fly over if you come and visit us at Marshland. He was very influential on international conservation. He was in the Navy during World War II when he started his career, originally on destroyers, but then he moved into fast motorboats, moving in the English Channel against the German E-boats. And it was interesting because he only was the only captain of one squadron, a particular squadron of these fast motorboats, because they were steam-powered ones.
Steam-powered, fast. Impressive, isn't
yes.
it? Steam-powered fast motorboat.
But perhaps his most important contribution was that of camouflage schemes for large ships, military ships at sea, particularly in the Atlantic, because Peter Scott was an artist. He did a lot of artwork, illustrated his own books and drew a lot of wildfowl artwork, so he was very keen on painting. And he came up with a camouflage design for large British naval ships. And in May 1941, the whole of the Atlantic Fleet was ordered to use that particular design of camouflage there. So
Most impressive.
he had a BBC TV series called Look from 1955 to 1969, all about natural nature and wildlife. And he also included the first ever BBC natural history television programme in colour, called The Private Life of the Kingfisher.
How lovely. Oh, Kingfisher, what a good programme to make in colour.
Absolutely, yes. And in 1962, a little bit of an oddity, he actually founded or co-founded the Loch Ness Phenomenon Investigation Bureau to look after the Loch Ness Monster, which I
To look for.
look for.
I'm sure
yes.
he would have looked after
He was,
it.
he did definitely. Well,
if
he
he'd
was to
found
look
it.
for it, to look after it. So, he was very keen on finding it. And I do remember seeing a photograph that he took, proclaimed to be it on the front of the newspapers at the time, which I think subsequently it was found not to be so. It was Peter Model or something like that.
still
It was something was in there. It wasn't his. He didn't try and fool everyone. It just looked
Right.
like it.
Awesome.
But here comes the aviation connection.
Here it is.
In 1956, Sir Peter Scott took up gliding and became the British champion of gliding in 1963. He then became the chair of the British Gliding Association, the BGA, which is still in existence today. And then from 2 years, from 1968, he was the president of the Bristol and Gloucestershire Gliding Association, or Gliding Club rather. He was also responsible for involving Prince Philip in gliding for the first time.
Excellent.
Also a little personal connection with him, again through my father, that my father was ground crew for him in the 1965 World Gliding Championships, which was held in South Cerney in Gloucestershire. Additionally, the magazine Sailplane and Gliding, which is the national gliding magazine for glider pilots in the UK, had a special edition in 1965 that was almost solely devoted to the World Gliding Championships, inside of which was a big advert, full-page advert for the Beagle Husky tow plane made by the Beagle Aircraft Company. The actual aircraft in the photograph was one that I have flown behind most of my gliding career, because it's the tug aircraft at Peterborough Spalding Gliding Club. I've even flown in it because my father was a tug pilot, so I've had several trips around with it as well, and had a pole around with it at the same time.
Linked by the aeroplane.
Linked by the airplane. It still operates from the Peterborough and Spalding Gliding Club to this very day.
That's tremendous. That's really, really cool.
A couple of Scots for you this time, a
Yeah.
little bit longer than last time, but
Yeah.
we'll put more information in the
Just
links
below, in the
just
links.
below
Yep.
in the YouTube video.
Yeah, and there'll be more to come of extraordinary aviation heroes, past and present, courtesy of Monsieur Le Julian, and that concludes our.
And I'm sure you'll be able to think of some as well.
Well, I might be able to think of
Yes.
the odd bod or
Yes.
two, just to fill in here and there.
absolutely.
But yes, we'll develop this into a series.
Yes.
So we'll just gradually bring to light more and more people who support, are part of aviation in their own way over time. Thanks for today. This has been GHV Airfield Savers Day 6.